Join me as we do Chitas for today, the Chumash for Tuesday, the third Torah reading of Parsha Shemos. Yesterday we learned about the birth of Moshe. Moshe was born and his mother put him by the side of the river where the daughter of Pharaoh found him, asked Moshe's mother to nurse him, and at that point Moshe now returned to the palace, to the daughter of Pharaoh, where she gave him the name Moshe. Today we continue about Moshe's life in Egypt. Verse 11, chapter 2. And it was in those days where Moshe was now elevated by Pharaoh in a position in his household, and Batya was very fond of Moshe and influenced her father, to appoint him to this position. Vayigdal Moshe, and because of that, Moshe was elevated. It was in those days that Moshe was elevated. And he went to observe his brothers and their suffering. And he saw how they were suffering. And he saw ish mitzri make ish ivri. He saw a Egyptian taskmaster striking a Jewish fellow, a Hebrew fellow, me'echav, one of his brothers, his Hebrew brothers. Who were these people? What did Moshe see, and what's going on? Rashi, number 11. Vayigdal Moshe, it says already before that the child already grew up. What does this mean? Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi says, the first one means that he got tall. Vasheni, ligdula. The second one's talking about that he was appointed by Pharaoh as in a position. Shemino pare al beisei. Pharaoh appointed him to a position where he was in charge of things in his household. Vayar b'sivloisam, and he saw the suffering the Jewish people had. What does this mean? He saw. He paid attention to it, that he was pained by the fact that they were going through such suffering. Each Mitzri, who was this Egyptian fellow? He was a taskmaster, Memun al Sheiter Yisrael. He was in charge of making sure the Jewish people, the taskmasters of the Jews, were doing their job. And he would wake them up in the morning and tell them, it's time for you to go, to go work. He was hitting a Jewish fellow, a Hebrew. Malkeyu v'reideu. He was making him suffer, beating him, and making him feel bad, humiliating him. Who was he doing this to? This was the husband of the Shleimus, the daughter of Divri, that later on we talk about Nasan Einavba. What happened was this Egyptian taskmaster was interested in her, and at night, when he came to wake up this Jewish guy that he should go work, he forced the Jewish fellow, the Hebrew fellow, out of his home. And the Egyptian taskmaster went into the home and raped his wife. She thought it was dark outside. She thought it was her husband. The Chazar Ish, then the man, the Jewish guy, came back into the home and realized what happened here. When that Egyptian taskmaster noticed that the husband realized what this Egyptian guy did, he was beating him and humiliating him all day. And that's why later on in the book of Leviticus, when we find that the Jewish child goes and curses God because he wants to know which tribe he's from and was upset about what the Jewish people told him, this was this boy that was born from that relationship. Verse number 12. When Moshe sees what's happening here, Moshe investigated what was happening. He turned this way and that way. And he saw that there was no one around. And he hit the Mitzri. And he hit him in the sand. Rashi, what does it mean? He looks this way and that way. He saw with divine presence what this Egyptian did Babayis in the home, what he did to him in the field. Well, if he pshut a simple interpretation, simply put, he looked all around to all sides to make sure nobody was looking. And he saw with divine presence, he is scared that there's nobody going to come from this individual that will eventually convert. And because of that, he said, I can go and kill this person. And then it so happened to be, he came out the second day. And he sees two men. They were Dasan and Aviram, fighting with one another. And he said, La Rasha. He said to the wicked person, why are you going to beat your brother? Rashi, These two fellows, who were they? Dasan and Aviram. V'heim she'siru min haman. This same Dasan and Aviram made problems later on that they left over from the man, and Moshe got upset at them. We'll see that later on throughout the stories of the Torah, Dasan and Aviram's name appear multiple times as the troublemakers. Lama Saka, why are you hitting your fellow? Even though he hasn't hit him yet. Nikra Rashi was called an evil person by Ramas Yad just by picking up his hand to hit somebody with the intent to hit somebody. Already you called him evil. Reyacha, a friend. Rasha Kameisecha, he's just as bad as you are. There's some that the Medrash explains that what actually happened here, that Dasan and Aviram, one of them was the husband of this woman, and he wanted a divorce, and he was yelling at him and beating him, why are you divorcing? It wasn't his fault, and so on, and that was the argument that ensued. That's why the two stories are juxtaposed one to another. That's what a Medrash explains here as well. The Torah then continues in verse 14. Vayomer, the Hebrew man retorted and said, Mi sam chalish, who appointed you to a leader of us? Sar v'shefet, for one, a leader or a judge of Banas. Halargeni ataimer, do you intend to kill me? Kasher haraktas a Mitzri, as you killed the Egyptian? Vayira Moshe, Moshe was afraid. Vayomer, and he said, Ochei noida hadavar, oh no, the reason that it was now known. I feel bad that now what I did may be known. Rashi, Misam Chalish, Varayot Chanar, you're still a young guy. Halargeni ataimer, are you going to kill me? From here we see that how did Moshe kill him? Shaharga b'shem meferish, by mentioning God's holy name, because he says, are you going to kill me as you said? That's why he killed him. Vayira Moshe, Moshe kipshuta, he was afraid for his life because maybe they'll kill him because he killed an Egyptian. The Medrash says, dog, he was worried and concerned. Al Sharab Yisrael D'Shem Dal Torah. He saw that the Jewish people had amongst them informers that went and told Pharaoh what he did. Omer, he said, maybe the Jewish people are not going to be worthy to go out of exile. Simply put, people found out. And the Medrash says, Noidali, now I know the reason. Hadavar shayisi tamalov. I was always wondering, what did the Jewish people do wrong from all the 70 nations that they should be exiled? But now I see Bavidas Perach, and they should be tortured with such back-breaking labor. But unfortunately, I see the way they're behaving, and that there are informants that they may be deserving of it. I see Moshe, leader of the Jewish people, that even in their down times, Moshe is looking to see why would the people be deserving of such exile, caring for each one of the Jewish people. Vayishma Pari, and Pharaoh heard what happened. Vayivakish laharig, as Moshe, and he wanted to kill Moshe. Vayivrach Moshe, Moshe ran away mipnei Pari, because of Pharaoh. Vayeshev beretz Midian, and he settled in the land, and he fled to the land of Midian. Vayeshev ala be'er, and he sat by the well Vayishma Pari, and Pharaoh heard. Haim Hilshinu Alav. How did Pharaoh hear about it? Dasan and Aviram, they went and informed on Moshe. Vayivakish laharigis Moshe, wanted to kill Moshe. He took him out to kill him. Mosher likostaninar, he brought him to the person who would kill him, to the lahargay, to the one that was going to kill him. However, he tried to decapitate him, but the sword couldn't kill him. V'ushamar Moshe, that's why Moshe, when he names his child Eliezer, he says, Vayitzileni b'cherev Pari, and he saved me from Pharaoh's sword. Vayeshev beretz Midian, and he settled in the land of Midian. Nisakev sham, he stayed there. Kemoi Vayeshev Yaakov, like we find it said by Yaakov, Vayeshev be'er, Lashon Yeshiva, meaning he sat there. When he went to Midian, where's the first place he went? Went to the well. Why did he go to the well? Lamed mi Yaakov, he learned from Yaakov, that the dating place was by the well. He realized that here is going to find his match the way Yaakov found his match by the well. He felt maybe the same will happen to him. Interestingly enough, that the Torah omits a large chunk of Moshe's life where he ran away. He fled first to Ethiopia, where he joined the army there, and he was there and remained king of Ethiopia for 40 years. And only in the year 2418, this was when Moshe was the king of Ethiopia, and then later on, as the Medrash tells about a story, there were snakes, and he told them what to do. Eventually, at the year 2434, when Moshe was 67 years old, Moshe left Ethiopia, and this verse tells us that he settled in Midian, where he sat near the well, learning from his great-grandfather Jacob. Verse 16. Now, Pharaoh's former advisor by the name of Yisro had 7 daughters. Vatavina, Vatidlena, Vatimalena. They came to draw water to fill from the troughs. Vatimalena Sarahatim, they filled up those troughs of water. Lahashkes Estzeinaviyam, to give to water to their father's flock. 16, Rashi, Lokoyin Midyan, Rav Shaban, he was a leader amongst them. However, but he left idolatry, and therefore they banned him. The Rahatim were the troughs that they would put water in, Hatsuyas butters that were in the ground, this way that the cattle can drink from it. What happened was, because he was banned, the other shepherds came, and they tried chasing the girls away. Moshe got up, and he helped them. And he gave their flock to drink. He watered their flock. Why did they chase them away? Because they were banned, because he left their idolatry and he had his own religion, so to speak. So therefore, they banned him from their religion and banned his daughters as well. And they came to Ru'ul, their father. And their father asked them, how did you come so early today? Every other day it takes you so long. So they said, verse 19, they told him, an Egyptian man rescued us from the hands of the shepherds. Not only did he rescue us, but he also drew water for us. And he watered the flock. So he asks them back, verse 20, so he asked his daughters, so where is he? Such a nice guy that helped you out. Where is he? Why did you leave him? Call him, and let him have something to eat. Rashi, they knew that he's such an important person. He recognized that this was an important individual from the story of his daughters. He knew that this was from the children of Yaakov, because the water went up to greet him. Because they said he was also able to water it easily. So he knew that this was a special person. What does it mean, bread? Doesn't only mean bread. He was alluding to the fact that maybe he will be able to marry one of you. Like when people say, like it said before in the verse, that Yosef said that the only thing that Potiphar didn't give him was but the bread that he eats, referring to his wife. Verse 21, Vayoyel Moshe l'Sheves, and Moshe consented to stay with the man. L'Sheves Hashish, to stay with the man. Vayitan Tzipora bita l'Moshe, and he gave Tzipora, his daughter, to Moshe for a wife. Though Moshe went to him, as well as what happened was when Moshe first came to Yisro, Moshe told him that his adventures in Ethiopia, and he suspected him of lying, and he was concerned that he was an Egyptian man, that they might come after him. So therefore he put him in prison for 10 years. During those 10 years, Tzipora was the one that was giving him to eat. So therefore, when he released him from prison, he gave him Tzipora as a wife, and he was then in charge of tending to the sheep for Yisro. This way, he made him swear that he wouldn't leave Midian without his permission. As we find later on, when God tells Moshe to go down to Egypt, he first has to go ask permission from his father-in-law. Verse 21, Rashi, Vayoyel, what does it mean, Vayoyel? Kitargumai. Like the Targum says, V'doimaloi, we also have it before, Hoyel novelin, please come and stay. V'loy alnu, and they agreed. Hoy alti ladaber, and God agreed. Midrashe lashin ola, like a swear. Nishbaloi, that he swore to him, Shalayazaz b'Midian, he will not leave Midian kim bershusay, only with permission. Verse 22, Vatelad bain, and he gave birth to a son. Vayikra shmoi Gershom, when Tzipora gave birth to a son, they named him Gershom. Why Gershom? Ki Omar, he said, Ger hayisi be'eretz nichriya. For he said, I've been a stranger in an alien land. This concludes the Torah reading for the, doesn't conclude. One more verse. Verse 23. Vayhi bayami mehem, and it was in those days, Vayamas Melech Mitzrayim, and the king of Egypt died. Vayeonchu b'nei Yisrael b'nei avoda, and the Israelites groaned because of the suffering that we're going through. Vayizaku, and they cried out to God. Vatal shavasam al-elikim, and their pleas went up to Hashem, al-elikim, to God, b'nei avoda, because of the difficult work that they were going through. Vayhi bayami mehem, what does it mean in those days? Rashi, Moshe gar b'Midyan, Moshe was living in Midian at the time. Vayamas melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt died. V'hutzruchu Yisrael litzishua, but the Jewish people needed a salvation. What was Moshe doing at the time? As later on he says, Moshe was a shepherd who bought a shual yodei, and the salvation came through him. Therefore, therefore these sections are juxtaposed one together. Vayamas melech Mitzrayim, and the king of Egypt died. Not that he died literally, nitztara, he got leprosy. And because he had leprosy, one of his doctors told him the best way. It says a person that has leprosy is if they die, like we see later on by Miriam, she says she should not be considered as somebody who's dead. However, what was the way that he was looking for healing was by taking, Israel, he would take Jewish children and slaughter them, and bathe in their blood. And God heard their anguished outcry. Vayiskar likim is Brisa, and God recalled the covenant that He made as Avram, with Yitzchak, with Yaakov, and with Yaakov. Nakasam, what does the word nakasam mean? Tza'akasam, their cry. V'chein, as we find, Me'ir Mesiminoku, it says in Eov, that they would cry out. As Brisa, as Avram, the covenant that He made, im Avram, with Avram. Verse 25, Vayar likim es b'nei Yisrael, and God looked upon the Israelites, Vayeda Alikim, and God took note. Vayeda Alikim, what does it mean? And God knew, he took note? Of course God knew about it. But over here he says, Nos Nalim Lev, he took note to it, Lehelim, he did not conceal his eyes. He saw what was going on and paid attention to help the Jewish people. This concludes the third Torah reading of Parshas Shemos.